Here's a project I've been working on for a little while now. It's an old Tenshodo 060T steam engine. This is a diecast model from them instead of the brass models they usually make. It's from, I believe, the 60s. It's a pretty nice quality. The cast is nice and smooth, just a few little imperfections here and there. It's mostly sharp detail all around. I just finished painting this one and gave it Santa Fe lettering. The whole steam engine's a bit fictional for US railroads anyway, so you can kind of paint these however you want, and it doesn't really matter that much. Now this isn't all original. I've had to remake or repair a few parts, just because I got this as kind of a broken one. Like the front here, this pilot I actually got off of a Tyco frame, and then I filed that down smooth, glued it in place, and then sanded that down so it would look like, or look as much like an original part as possible. This hanger piece here is 3D printed. And the motor already ran pretty well as it was, but it used quite a bit of current, so I actually rewound this with 34 gauge wire that brought down the current by probably 30% or so and increased the torque while also reducing the speed a bit because it was very fast. So now that this is all painted and everything, I'm just about to put it back together here. So this will only take a couple minutes, I think. Put the wheels back on there. Make sure those rods aren't in the way. Just a little of that on each axle. Spread around a bit. Don't need much. All right. Turn that in a little. And that should be good. Well, before I put that on, I'm going to spread just a little bit of fresh grease on there. I was using Vaseline before for greasing gears, but I found out recently that it's apparently not the best for plastic, and it was almost out anyway, so I got this white lithium grease bottle, which should last me for the rest of my life with how much there is. Just one gear, you don't really need much. It's enough to spread on a couple of the teeth there, and then the motor will do the rest of the work. You don't want too much grease in there because you don't want it gooping up and flying all around everywhere. Only a small amount actually stays on the gear teeth. All right, now I'll put the plate back on. A few screws to hold this in. Phillips screw right here because one of the originals was missing. There we go. Turning freely enough. So now go ahead and drop that in there. Get the crossheads aligned in the cylinders. This part can be a little tedious. There, finally got that in. Turning nice and smooth. I'll have to re-glue these parts. one's fine. All right, I think that's staying in there now. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so now just a little more oil in each of those little points on the side rods. Again, you don't need much, just enough to keep it moving freely. Turn that in a bit. And good. So now I'll get the motor in. First thing I have to put on is the electrical contact, though. Oops. I added an extra electrical wiper to the front wheel here. I found that just these two alone on the wheels there weren't quite enough to help it to work reliably over switches and stuff, so adding that last wiper actually made quite an improvement. Motor goes right there. Hold the cylinders in. Drop that in there. Leave that just a little loose so that I can get the mesh adjusted, the gear mesh. And I want to make sure the motor is straight too. Don't want the mesh to be too tight. So start at the front there, back it off a little bit. Tighten one screw and give it a quick check. And that seems about right. There's just a tiny bit of play in the gear tooth. So straighten the motor out. And that looks good. So now just hook that up real quick. Make sure it's working smoothly before I put the body on there. And it's not even turning the wheels. Huh. I guess I have the mesh adjusted too loose. And that's why you test these things before you finish. Just one side in a little. And then the other one. Now let's see how it does. There we go. That feels nice and smooth. Armature is big enough to have its own flywheel effect. Kind of cool. Okay, so now I'll just stick that boiler back on there, or whole body shell, I guess it is, not just the boiler. Those tabs aligned in there. One screw through the bottom to hold it all together. And the coupler for the back. I'll worry about the front later. There we go, it's got some spring. It's holding in place. Mostly. Come on. Get in there. There. And now it's done. And now let's run it around a bit. Nice smooth takeoff there. There's no problem at all pulling about a dozen freight cars behind it. It's not a bad little steam engine at all. So that's Tenshodo diecast 060T for you. It's not exactly based on anything in the US, but it looks close enough that you can decorate it for pretty much any railroad you want. Looks pretty nice, runs smoothly. Quality's about the same as the, I'd say, Pinline and Mantua of the time. The construction's very similar, easy to work on. So if you can find one of these for a decent price, it's definitely one that I would recommend.